Taiwanda Bason. This is our first interview for 2020. Yay! So I'm so happy that you guys are going to join us, and we have a very special broadcast for you today, which will also give you a little break from what you've probably been seeing in the media lately, which I know you should be happy to see today. And I want to remind you guys, make sure that you share the broadcast to let others know that we are here as well. And just thank you again for joining us. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure you jot those down in the chat. And we'll be able to answer some of those while we are in the interview. And maybe you'll even see your question or comment on the screen as well. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and introduce our very special guest who is joining us today. And so, I'm going to bring her up so you can see her. Hello, 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 Dr. Payton. How are you?
Hello, Taiwanda. How are you? I finally
I'm
get to
fine.
see you again.
Yes, yes, yes. And I thank you so much for joining us today. Um, Dr. Mary Payton is host of the All About STEM radio show. So we're going to learn something about STEM today. And today's topic is STEM around us and the world. Some of you may not exactly know what STEM is, but we're going to get into that to explain it for you in a bit. So, how are you doing today, Dr. Payton?
I'm great. I'm like everybody else. We are at, stay at home situation, trying to be careful based on the pandemic that's going on right now. So I'm home. I'm enjoying myself. I'm staying in contact with everybody, and I get tickled because I'm the person that's of that age that you have to take care of. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in my 60s. Oh my goodness. So everyone is contacting everyone and just enjoying ourselves.
Okay, okay. I think 60, maybe they don't have to take care of you because I think you have a lot of energy, Dr.
I
Dr.
do.
Payton. You're doing a lot of things.
I do. But I have to remember that.
Okay, okay. And I just want to tell before we get into the interview, tell our viewers again, make sure if you have any questions for Dr. Payton that you jot those down in the chat and we will get to them as we go throughout the interview. And first, I want to start off, Dr. Payton. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, as y'all know, I'm Dr. Mary Payton, and I started my STEM career very young. My undergraduate degree is in biology and kinesiology. Now, for me, your whole body is a cheat sheet. So that's why I love those two fields. I was in sports and I was in science, which back in the 70s, people were like, why are you doing that? You're a girl and
Mm-hmm.
you're not looking at being a doctor. And I'm like, I'm doing what I love. And so
Mm-hmm.
I got to do that. And then a few years after I graduated, I went in the military and became a chemical officer, which
Okay.
my fields focused around nuclear physics and chemical biological safety and surety. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky to write 7 training manuals in health physics. So that was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fun.
Wow.
And I got to do what, I really wanted to do. I actually worked with
Mhm.
live chemical agents, mixed live chemical agents. Accidentally had to get what they call doffed out because my mask fell off while I was actually doing the live agent training. So they had to take me out, scrub me with bleach, and
Wow.
rush me to the emergency room. But I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't twitch, not intentionally. unintentionally. But no, that's my background. After I retired, I went back into the classroom as a science teacher. I've taught biology, chemistry, physics. Uh, Probably about 10, 11 years ago, I got into robotics and found out that that was like the coolest thing to do.
Mhm.
So the last couple of years, I've been working with 4 year olds, teaching them STEM, and I've just been amazed at what they do because I've always taught high school, college, and middle school.
Mhm.
And now other than the show, and I got asked to come to Hawaii to teach seventh grade science and have been having a blast with my babies. They're a little different
Mhm.
because I'm on the Big Island. I'm not on Oahu.
Okay.
On the Big Island, it's a little rural, but
Mhm.
the kids, they have a lot of knowledge, and I've been extremely, extremely proud of them. So,
Okay. Okay,
mhm.
wow. So the students are Hawaiian. Um, Hawaiian students, are they from like other countries?
Well, they are primarily Native Hawaiian, which means they were born and raised here, but they have
Mhm.
different ethnicities like Filipino, Portuguese,
Oh,
how let's see, Native Hawaiians, Chinese, Japanese. It's a lot of different mixtures, but
mhm.
they're primarily all Native Hawaiian, which means they were born and raised here. Their parents were
Mhm.
primarily born and raised here. So,
Mhm.
but the thing that to me that they have far above a lot of students is the um, the environment here.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, our kids went out a couple the week before spring break. Some of our kids went out to do a thing on the ocean, and whales
Mhm.
were coming up. Where can you
Wow.
on a daily basis see whales or
Yes.
dolphins? Or just a vast variety of fish. I mean, the environment here is just amazing. So,
Wow. And great for STEM, I can imagine.
oh, yes, it is. Totally, totally, totally.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that is awesome that you're in Hawaii. I've never been there, but I've heard I've heard about it. And so you told us earlier when you were telling us about yourself about your career in the military as well. So and I know that you've traveled internationally. So could you
Yep.
tell us where you've been abroad? Where else?
Um, I've lived in Germany. Well, throughout the military, I lived in Germany. I traveled to England, Croatia, and then all around the United States as a chemical officer or as a commander.
Mm-hmm.
I did live here in Hawaii before, so I got to raise my kids here for a while
Cool.
as a chemical officer with Paycom.
Mm-hmm.
But after my retirement, I don't know, I still had the travel bug in me. So I was able to teach chemistry in the Middle East in Dubai. Loved
Okay.
it. Great kids, great place to be. And then came back, and then I went to South Korea as a principal and a AP biology
Oh.
teacher. So,
Cool, cool. So there are
mhm.
like lots of opportunities like
Oh
in
yeah,
STEM for people.
yep,
Okay.
there are.
Okay. Now, for some of our viewers, they might not actually know what STEM is. So
Mhm.
they hear me saying STEM, but you could you explain for them what STEM is?
STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And
Okay.
it is a small term for a broad situation because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
parents will tell me, "Oh, I want my child to be in STEM. I want my son or daughter to be in STEM." They love STEM. And then when I ask them what do they like about STEM, what is their specific area, um, they'll turn to their child. and then their kids will let me know, oh, I like robotics, or I like math, or I like agriculture, because it is such a large term to talk about the sciences. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of people think, oh, you're in STEM, so you do robotics.
Mhm.
Well, I do robotics, but that's not my primary thing.
Mhm.
So, you look at trying to focus kids in on something in STEM. Some of my kids, they hate mathematics. And parents will
Yes.
say, well, my child doesn't like math, so they're not going to like STEM. But then you look at that child and you get them into robotics or into coding or into
Yes.
animal husbandry, that kind of thing. And they're like, oh, that's still a STEM field? Yes, it is.
Mhm.
So, and, when you look at it, this is going to be the biggest growing field ever,
Mhm.
because everything around us relates to it: meteorology, biology, chemistry, actuary. I never knew what an actuary did till I finally met one. And that's a person who primarily deals in math and
Okay.
loves it. So,
Mhm. Ooh, thank you for explaining that. Because as you were saying, I was like, I don't even know what an actuary is. So I'm glad you explained it. Um,
thank you.
and it's really interesting because I know I was on your show as
I
well,
know
and
that was a great show.
thank you. I enjoyed it. And before we actually had the show, you talked to me a little bit more to find out about the things that I had done. And some things you pointed out to me, I didn't really think of as STEM. For instance, I study psychology. And you're like, yeah, that's like related to STEM. And then I started telling you about a project, or not, well, not project, but a lesson I taught my students when I
Yeah.
was in special education about the basketball, like how am I going to teach fractions, converting fractions, decimals, and percentages to the kids, especially that they had disabilities, and
hmm
mainly like behavioral issues. So like where they would lose attention and could get into like a lot of trouble. And so I was like, how am I going to teach them this so that they would be engaged, not want to get
Yeah.
in trouble or fight, and
Yeah.
use their energy at the same time. Then I thought about it. And I think this is what we don't think about, because when we say STEM, it's like, okay, what is STEM? But then I thought about it, I said, would what activity or what would include like all of those where
hmm
I could be able to teach them? And I was like, basketball. Because they have to, when they tell you about the percentage or the number of shots, like they shoot a free throw, they say, oh, he's 2 for 3 or one for
Yeah.
three. Those are your fractions. And then they give you the percentages of the shots that they make, and that. And that's what we did for that lesson. The kids got to go and play basketball. They had to write down their scores, and they were actually excited when we got back to the
Yeah.
classroom to do the computations. And then they had worked out all their energy, so there was no time for them to like misbehave. But yes, you brought it out to me. You were like, that was a good example, and I didn't think about it. I
Yeah.
was just thinking about, okay, a lesson that I had to do.
Well, what you did, you made it relevant to them.
Hmm.
And that's where, we as adults, we as parents, we as teachers have to make STEM relevant to the students. You made it real to them, because you can
Hmm.
tell kids, oh, STEM is, all the jobs are going to be in STEM, in the future. But when you made it relevant, you taught them fractions using basketball. I mean, you can also teach uh, force or physics using
Hmm.
basketball. So for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction, and so on and so forth. You made those kids, if they look at a basketball game, they're going to look at it totally
Hmm.
different, with the understanding, oh, basketball games are won or lost on free throws. If you're not getting the percentage that you need, you can easily lose. Or if you are getting them, you can easily win. They're gonna look at it differently. I mean, just like
Mhm.
the 4-year-olds that I worked with, I thought, okay, working with 4-year-olds, I'd never worked with young children before. What
Mhm.
can I do with them in STEM? I took some of my high school and middle school science labs and did it with them, gave them the vocabulary, and those babies just thrived. I mean,
Mhm.
teaching sublimation to a 4-year-old was hilarious. And they go home, and all that is you take dry ice and you put water
Okay.
on it. And instead of going from a liquid, I mean, from a solid to a liquid, it goes immediately to a gas. That's sublimation.
Oh.
And all the kids had dealt with dry ice before, but
Mhm.
giving them that term made it totally relevant to them. So
Mhm.
it was a lot of fun.
Okay, okay.
So,
That sounds good. And I guess like with that same token, uh there are a lot of teachers, because we talked about you were able to travel through the military,
yeah.
and then you were teaching like you're doing now, teaching abroad in the STEM field.
Hmm.
There are a lot of people, maybe they're teaching English. Like me, I was teaching special education in the USA, so I had to teach all the subjects: math, science, English, and everything.
Yeah.
But a lot of people teach English because a lot of countries want their people to learn English as their second language. So would they be able to apply STEM as English teachers, like as they're teaching English?
Yes, because what you have to think about STEM, everything in STEM involves every other subject. You
Mm-hmm.
if you have to be able to do mathematics, or you may want to be able to do mathematics, you have to write it down because that's how
Okay.
you know if what you're doing is working. Historically, we look at, let's say we're looking at creating a object or creating a robot or looking at how things move. We're going to look historically what has been done. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
everything is related in a way to STEM. So if we're talking about English, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can discuss distance, because when we talk about teaching English, we want to teach conversational English. And
Mm-hmm.
you can say, okay, if you're taking the train from uh, Frankfurt, Germany to Gießen, Germany, and you need to be there at a particular time, you can take that and break that into mathematical terms. Okay, what time do you need to leave, and what train do you need to catch in what direction to go there? So you just talked about distance, speed, and vectors right there, and didn't even notice that you did.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm looking at the look on your face is like, oh really? It's
Yeah.
just making it relevant.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, that's awesome. So it's putting it like in real world terms. Let me get this
Hmm.
out. um, because often when teachers are presented like, okay, you have to teach this lesson or this
Yeah.
subject, and you're trying to figure out from what you've read, like the objective or whatever it is, how can I
Hmm.
teach this? And so you just put it in real world terms. It makes it seem so
Yeah.
so easy to be able to do that.
Especially if you're internationally and you're having to deal with your own real life. So let's think about it. If you are wanting to go somewhere, let's say you remember we met when I was living in South Korea,
Hmm.
and for me to have to catch a flight from where I was teaching in Jeonju, South Korea, I would have to catch a bus to Seoul,
Yes.
and then from Seoul, I had to get on my flight. Now it's a 4 hour drive on the bus to
Hmm.
Seoul. So what time did I have to leave? And I would
Yes.
have to go to meetings all across South Korea at other schools.
Hmm.
And I didn't have a car and I wasn't going to buy a car. So I would catch the bus and then catch a taxi. So
Hmm.
how did I get there? What direction did I do? And then I had to deal with the language barriers because I
Yeah.
didn't know very much Korean. I knew enough.
Hmm.
And so, you have to take those things into consideration because a lot of your drivers don't speak any English.
Yes.
And so, it's a lot of things to take into consideration. But,
Yes.
mhm. And
Okay.
even in
Okay.
telling students how to log on to a class that you're giving is
Mm-hmm.
very important. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely, especially now that a lot of people are working from home. Actually, in Korea, I just saw my friend. She's Korean, from when I used to
Hmm.
teach there, and I saw last week. I think she posted something about classes or teaching online. I said, "Have you started?" She said, "No, they won't actually start until after. Well, their New Year starts, like the school year starts. I think
Yeah.
this it was supposed to start, I guess, like this month, but I guess they were waiting to start because of maybe the virus. So they're getting ready to start, and so now they'll be going online. So I
Hmm.
saw she like wrote in Hangul. She was writing in Hangul how nervous she is, not only for herself, but like how she's gonna be able to teach what she needs
Yeah.
to the book, but also she was nervous about the parents and the students as well, being able to do
And,
that.
and see, I know the school that I was principal of, I was also teaching science there. Luckily, we had Google Classroom
Okay.
and we taught everything in English. Um, so for that school, it's going to be extremely easy for them to go
Mhm.
online.
Mhm.
But at some schools, it may not be, depending on what their platform is, because platforms are going to be extremely important. And
Mhm.
selecting the one that you want to use, because I've had to change mine here.
Mhm.
I normally teach my class through a blog, and
Mhm.
it's just easy for me to do it because the kids don't have to log in anywhere. I can
Okay.
upload everything I need. Well, they can't turn in any assignments there.
Uh-huh.
So I've had to go over to Google Classroom
Mhm.
to get my students on, and it's working because I've used Google Classroom before. But you just have to make sure you select the platform that you want to use because there's so
Mhm.
many out there. I mean, I found
Yes.
something new the other day.
Mhm.
I've always used Zoom video to
Okay.
do
I like that.
classes and communicate and have meetings. Google has a meeting on Google Classroom to where you can put together your kids on a meeting and teach right on Google Classroom. And I'm like, it wasn't
Mhm.
there before when I used it in Korea, but it's there now. I'm in love with this. So,
Mhm.
you know, she's just
Okay.
gonna have to figure out what platform her school has and what she can use.
Definitely. And I've just seen like other people as well posting about the same thing. Teachers in China, I guess in well English, they would be English teachers or foreign
Yeah.
teachers, who were trying to figure that out. And then plus the ones in the USA, because there's some. I even remember when I was like teaching, there teachers at my school when I was teaching in the special education program that I was in, and
Hmm.
I love technology.
Yeah.
And I more so for like teaching, and
Hmm.
because our students had like lots of disabilities, I was always thinking about how can I teach this to them in a way that they would be able to understand that they all could get it. So if I had a student who was hearing impaired, one that could not identify letters and numbers, then others had other, other issues, different things, plus the behavior
Yeah.
piece. So I was always thinking about how can I teach this? Okay, so for this one, he can't read. However, he can hear, and he catches information very well from listening. So I thought about, okay, my lecture it will work for him. If I show a video, then he could listen and learn from that, from watching. The student who was hearing impaired. Like she can't hear very well and it'll be confusing for the video, but she could watch the images, she could read, she could sign language, or do sign. How, but she had to get it in her way. So I tried to present the same information to the students in different ways so that they all could um, get get that particular information and be successful, uh,
Yeah.
su- successful at it. So yes, I think for the teachers now, especially like from if they're teaching from home, it might be very difficult for them, because when I was in the school, like many of the teachers, although technology, when I study technology, and most people don't think of this, or they don't know like the real definition of technology. When we get down to, they're like, even a pencil on paper, those are like, technology. But when it comes to like, at that time, projectors, and yeah, that's, we didn't have like the whiteboard. We got the whiteboard like, I think like later in the year some teachers
Yeah.
did. But many of them didn't know how to use a projector. They didn't really know how to integrate other sources like websites and things like that that
Yeah.
students could use for learning. So but once I asked for it, it's like, please, can I use the projector? And I was using that, and then other teachers started asking me, can you show me how to do this, or how are you like integrating all, these sources into your lessons? So I, in a way, started teaching them. So I can imagine, because some of them, they were used to like the old school way, like using a
Yeah.
textbook and writing. So now from home, it may be even more difficult uh, for some to be able to teach that way.
And you're right. I think my biggest thing, and this is something I've been trying to hammer out since I've been home, is
Hmm.
how am I going to get my kids actively involved in their own learning, other than, I mean, I've got the worksheets down pat, I've got the videos down pat, but I need them to do some hands-on things.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that I'm going to attempt to do is just short lab videos of things that they actually have at home.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm going to do some grow videos for photosynthesis. I'm going to have them post leaves that they have around their house, their homes, and we're going to talk about why leaves are green, and take a look at the front side and the back side of a leaf to look at the stoma, which allows for cellular
Yeah.
respiration and photosynthesis. And, how am I going to get them involved instead of just sitting at a computer and looking at a screen and taking notes? Because
Hmm.
I'm a very, very hands on person. It's how I taught in the military, it's how I taught college, it's how I taught high school, how I taught middle school. It's what can they do at home that they they could have done in the classroom, to make it
Hmm.
simple. I mean, I have some density labs that I'm going to do, um, of things that they can actually use at home. There's one
Yes.
lab in particular that I really want to do. I want to try it, so I got to see if I can get it to work. I want to use gelatin as a growth
Hmm.
media for seeds. And
Ah.
yeah, so I want to be posting daily growth so they can see how the root comes out, how the leaf comes out, and so on and so forth. So, I want them to get involved, because here we have all kinds of things that grow here that
Hmm.
don't grow all over the United States.
Hmm.
This is one state that you can walk down the street and pick oranges, tangerines, papayas, um,
Oh.
mango, all of those things. So as we go through photosynthesis, is it going to
Mm.
hurt them to go pick a mango or find a papaya and take the seeds out and look at
Yeah.
them? That's something they can do at home. So,
Yes.
or if they have pets, if they have dogs, okay, take a picture of your dog, upload the picture. Let's look at the differences in
Mm.
in your particular dogs. So would what breed of dog do you have?
Mhm.
So we can talk about selective breeding and artificial selection and all of that with just them, with what they have at home.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I'm kind
And
of excited to try some of these things.
I'm excited too because I was just thinking about going back to when you said you make it relevant to them, and it's
Yeah.
so relevant because they're going through their environment and integrating that into their learning.
Hmm.
So, and you're just kind of guiding them through it. And so, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, the picture of their dog, like they probably like their dog or enjoy their dog, but then they're going to learn so much more about it by doing
Hmm.
the activity or the lesson. So,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So I hope
Oh,
some of the
cats too,
educators.
y'all. I had to say cats too. Although I'm not a cat person, cats too, because some kids don't have dogs. Some of them have cats. So yeah.
Okay, well, cats are my favorite animals. So, like, I
But
don't
you
have
know you
one.
under yeah. But you understand what I'm saying. Why do they
Hmm.
all look different? Why do they not all look just alike? We call
Hmm.
them all dogs. We call them all cats. But what makes them different? With dogs, you have
Mm,
Chihuahuas, you have Doberman Pinschers, you have Boxers, you have Pit Bulls, just a whole plethora. And then you have
mhm.
your mixed breeds. And same with cats. So,
Okay,
hmm
okay. So I think you've given a lot of information right here just for educators who are now working from home, or even when they get back to the classrooms. Well, some are
yeah.
probably still in the classroom. In some countries, they're not as affected by um, Rona right now.
Yeah.
So they're actually still going about like their daily lives in some other countries, but
Yeah.
many are like home at this time. So you've given them a lot to think about, suggestions
hmm
that they can probably
hmm
implement in their lessons
Yeah.
and their activities with their students. So that's pretty cool. Take things from the real environment that are relevant to them. And now that I think about it, I don't know. This is aside from the interview, but I have done some voiceovers for
Okay.
clients related to similar to what you were explaining, like doing the videos that you would do online. So they have videos where they're showing how to do. Some of them were like experiments.
Yeah.
Like blowing up a balloon, but using what was it they used? Some kind of I can't remember. I think it may have, I don't know if it was baking soda and vinegar or something else. But
You can do
you
baking soda and vinegar, or you can do yeast and warm water. Those are
okay,
the two ways that we do it a lot of times.
okay. So there were like a few of them that I did for them, but they're all kind of like, experiments showing second language learners how to do it. And so I did the voiceovers like for the directions for them. And I
Yeah.
was like, as you were talking, I was like, oh, that would probably be very useful to do like online to show that. And the kids, like you were saying, how they would do it at home. So the kids are going to watch these videos as to why they wanted voiceovers and be able to follow step by step
Hmm.
along with them. And they have to, of course, get their own materials. Like they say, you need to prepare the sugar for yourself or by
Yeah.
yourself and get these different things and just tells them step by step what to do, and they see the visual and they're able to do it. So
Yep.
yes. So
It,
I thought
it's
about
it's
that.
just so much. It's so much that they have around the house, especially here, because a lot of things we do here is natural. I mean, it's not
Hmm.
natural, but a lot of fruits and vegetables that we have here are fresh. That's what I mean. Because
Hmm.
I buy very little canned food here because it's expensive. But I could
Yeah.
go to the market and buy everything and
Hmm.
then freeze it or can it or whatever.
Hmm.
And so, when you're getting papaya or you're getting passion fruit, you have all of these seeds. So you
Yes.
just take them out, wash them, and then let's see how long it takes them to grow. Have the kids, if they have internet access, look online and see what the life cycle of passion fruit is, or
Hmm.
or what we call lilikoi. or
Mhm. I'ma look
look
that up.
online and see what is the life cycle of papaya seeds. How
Mhm.
long will it take to grow? And calculate that. Take a look at that. And so,
Mm.
it's just interesting things to do, especially now that I'm getting into plant growth and photosynthesis. I'm getting out of evolution. So it's going to be interesting.
I
I'm
think
going
it
to try to
will.
do something.
And as you were talking, I was like, man, I wish I could be walking down the street and picking papayas, like papayas and
Oh,
mangoes, like just picking them off. Like I go to the market and get the papaya and mangoes.
oh, when I lived here before, I lived on Oahu. I'm on the Big Island now. I used to go for a 4 mile walk every night. And
Mhm,
some nights I'd be just walking, and I mean, you always see banana trees. The we call them apple bananas, those are the short bananas. Papaya, mango. I had avocado trees in my yard, and I never ate
wow.
avocado. And so my neighbors would pick all the avocados, which were fine. But there would be nights I'd come home, I'd pick a papaya or picked a bunch of bananas or something on my way home from my walk because it
Mhm,
wasn't in anybody's yard. It was just on the side of the rim of the volcano where I lived. So,
mm, wow. Okay, yeah. I just like chopped up an avocado last night. So like, yeah, I would like those free avocados. Okay.
but
Okay, so that is really awesome. Now, what I really want you to also tell our viewers about, and just aside for those of you who are joining us right now, I want to remind you to share and let others know that we are here, and we're here with Dr. Mary Payton. Host of the All About STEM radio show, and we're talking about STEM around us and the world today. So, thank you for joining us. And if you have any comments or questions, make sure you jot those down in the comment section. And so, speaking of your show, all about STEM radio, could you tell us about your show?
okay, All About STEM Radio is an internationally award-winning radio show that I started 3 years ago
Hmm.
because I really like STEM and because I've traveled so much. I had a friend who told me, she said, Mary, you need to do a radio show. I'm like, who's going to listen to me do a show? And she's
Hmm.
like, a lot of people will listen to you doing a show. So I started it 3 years ago. It's on Fishbowl Radio Network. It's an internet radio station.
Hmm.
The show now is on Mondays from 7 to 8 Central Time.
Okay.
It's live, and after that it goes into podcast. But I've been so lucky to talk to people all over the world. I've had guests from Tanzania, several
Mhm.
guests from India, and I have one. I've got to post some stuff that she sent me yesterday from Science Uverse out of India.
Mhm.
I have been able to talk to executives or engineers, sorry, engineers from Dyson,
Mhm.
the big vacuum cleaner company, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, um, from England, and just everywhere. People who write books on STEM. I mean, even and I'll talk about my books later, but
Mhm.
I have been so blessed and so lucky. On Mondays now, we have about 4,000 listeners in the booth that I'm in that day.
Wow.
Um, the station has close to 3 million listeners a month, and it's all
Wow.
online. You can go back and listen to podcasts of it. But I've just had a great time. I've had 12-year-old kids come on and talk about their science fair
Mhm.
projects. But
Mhm.
and I say this in every interview because this is a person that I am totally in love with. His name is Hernan. He's also in one of my books. He is a Mexican American
Mhm.
engineer who worked with NASA on all of the Apollo missions. And
Oh.
you don't think about those people.
Mhm.
You know, we talk about the hidden figures. He is a Mexican American hidden figure. So,
Mm.
he's in his 80s now, his late
Wow.
80s. I love him to death. His brain is sharp, but I got to see him before I left to come over here. I took a weekend and flew down to Houston and spent the weekend with him and his wife and his niece and his
Mhm.
sister-in-law. And, we just had a great time. But
Very cool.
yeah, but the show is growing,
Mhm.
constantly growing. Um, I'm not good with technology. That's why I had to have wonderful producers like Gary and Paul who take care of me because I'm here in Hawaii.
Mhm.
The show is broadcast out of Texas and is
Mhm.
broadcast all over the world via internet live every week.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but you know, that's I just enjoy talking to everybody. I
Mhm.
I have learned so much about STEM. My
Mhm.
my first guest, um, her name was Wanda Gas.
Mhm.
She does physics with young ladies every summer, and I did not know this till I started looking her up. I had gotten a flyer about her. They had sent some things to my school when I was teaching in Texas, and I called her and I said, "Hey, I really want you to come on my show." And she goes, "Okay, no problem." This lady developed the satellite communication device that we use on our cellular phones now.
Oh, yeah.
She
I think I
created
read
that. She told me yeah, she said, "Mary, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about women in physics." I'm like, "Really, lady? Do you know who you are?" But I have just been very, very blessed
Mhm.
to just meet wonderful people in the field. I had a young man last week, and I'm gonna give a kudo out to him. Um, oh my goodness, I got to think of his name now. Wait a minute, it's on my sheet. Wait.
Yes, we're still here.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay.
Um, his name is his name is Dr. Mayberry. He is host and owner of a thing called STEM Media. Young man, engineer, PhD, and I started listening to his shows on Sunday. So after we finish here, I'm going to listen to his show. He has a show that he does on Instagram,
Mhm.
and this young man has just opened so many avenues and so many eyes in people being in STEM.
Mhm.
STEM is a business, and
Mhm.
people have to understand this. You are a business as far as
Mhm.
being in STEM. And I'm like, oh my God, he is just amazing. He was on my show. And so, it's just a wonderful thing. And, now I'm having a few STEM educators come on and talk about teaching
Mhm.
coding online or teaching science
Yeah.
online or doing things like that. So, if anybody's ever interested, right now I'm on every Monday from 7 to 8 Central Time
Mhm.
on FBRN.us, and FBRN stands for Fishbowl Radio Network.
Mhm.
And, listen up. So
Yes.
we have a lot of fun.
Definitely. So you guys make sure you check her out. And along those lines, since you mentioned your guest who was Mexican American, who worked with NASA, who people may not know about,
Yeah.
like you said, the hidden figures, and the young lady who developed this the cellular technology, but she didn't want to talk about that. She wanted to talk about something
No.
else. Uh, could you tell us, since you've had such an array of guests and you yourself have been in STEM for a long time in the military and outside of the
Yeah.
military, and have been able to travel to other countries and be in different positions, still related to STEM. Could
Mhm.
you tell our viewers about maybe some of the different career opportunities that they may have to be able to work in STEM, especially some of those that may afford them to be able to travel, if that's something that they want to do? Because I think most of the time when we think about travel, because of the
Mhm.
information that's out there, the majority of the information when people think about traveling or living abroad. So traveling, living abroad, kind of same, a little bit of a
Mhm.
longer term than just like a week or so, like some months or like a year.
Mhm.
Um, we see a lot of information about teaching English, but a lot of people
Mhm.
don't know that there are opportunities available in other areas, such as those STEM areas. So maybe could you share like some of the opportunities that are available in STEM?
Well, let's take education first.
Okay.
Um, in education, every country in the world has either schools or colleges that teach in English. So if
Mhm.
you teach science or math or engineering or technology, they are looking for people to come and work with them.
Mhm.
Just like the school that I taught in Dubai, we taught in English.
Mhm.
I taught chemistry, then I taught AP biology, but all of our subjects were in English.
Okay.
So we had physics teachers, we had science, middle school science teachers, we had a awesome computer science slash robotics teacher.
Mhm.
But and that was in Dubai. I have friends who teach in China. I have friends who teach in Japan. I have friends like yourself who teach in
Mhm.
Vietnam and Thailand. The
Mhm.
positions are out there.
Mhm.
Now, for some of us, there are age ranges that you have to take into consideration because some
Mhm.
countries have a mandatory retirement age,
Yeah.
and so they're not going to hire you after a certain age. But that doesn't mean you can't be a contractor.
Mhm.
So take those things into consideration. But a lot of the jobs, some of the jobs you can do as researchers, and you don't even have to be in teaching.
Okay.
Like um, in the Middle East, they're still building that country.
Mhm.
So being an engineer, being a web designer, or being in technology, those are
Mhm.
fields that are extremely open. One of the biggest fields over there that is open is banking. I have
Really?
several friends who have degrees in um, banking, marketing, and things like that, and they are there working.
Wow.
So those are things to consider, other than you know being a robotics engineer or being an engineer or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, you know, uh, what is it? I'm trying to think. Whereas you design and develop cities, architect, well, not architecture, but city planning, city development
Mhm.
are huge in those up and coming countries.
Mhm.
So those are things that are relatable jobs out there to STEM. They're always, always, always looking for people in the medical field. There's a
Mhm.
huge surge in looking for nurses, in
Mhm.
looking for doctors, in looking for psychologists, in looking for dentists. That's always a huge thing when you're looking at going to other countries. But even in the United States, even here for us,
Mhm.
and I've mentioned it in my books, and they're over there. But like, there's one field I never really thought about, and that was being a bat scientist or a scientist that focused on nothing but turtles.
Oh.
I've had two young ladies on my show. One of them was from one of the huge bat populations down in Fredericksburg, Texas. And
Mhm.
just what I learned from her was amazing. And I'm like, who would have thought to be a scientist that focused just on bats and to
Mhm.
be a young lady? And then I had another young lady. Her thing is turtles. She's a biologist, and I look, and she's always posting her pictures with these huge, huge snapping turtles, which I don't like. I like sea turtles, but snapping turtles bite. They take big bites out of me. But
Mm.
it's those kind of things, and so there are jobs everywhere. Because when I used to think about being in STEM and going abroad, I thought about like paleontologists,
Mhm. Yeah.
people who go and check out mummies and stuff like that. But no, there is so much more you can do. Astronomy is a huge thing, especially here in Hawaii, where we have a our telescopes are run by 11 different countries here on this one
Mm.
island. And so,
Wow.
yeah. And that's the
Wow.
weird thing about being here. We have a light thing. You can't have, you have these huge big street lights everywhere. You can't
Mhm.
have that here
Mhm.
because we have light restrictions because of the observatories that are here. So
Mhm.
my first trip to the other side of the island, and I'm driving back on the highway with no street lights on the
Oh.
entire highway. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But I didn't. I
Oh.
made it. Okay. But,
Thank God.
but you have to take that into consideration. But yeah, so many things are so fluid
Mhm.
nowadays.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
hmm
And now, thank you for sharing that. So, you guys look into STEM too. If you're interested in travel, you can probably find an opportunity in that abroad as well. So, it's not only teaching English. There are other things because English may not be your area. And as Dr. Payton said as well, teaching isn't the only field. Like she mentioned, there's some
no,
people working in banking, the medical field. So you don't have to resort to just because most of the information you see is about teaching English and you really want to go, so you feel like I have to do this. It may not be for you. Think about what you are good at. Like she said, you may have experience or you may have education in those other areas, like she mentioned, in the STEM field, and you could easily find positions like that to allow you to travel.
yeah, yeah.
um
Hey, we live
and
without borders, don't we, Twan?
exactly, yes,
We
but
live
they trying to.
without borders.
Yes, Dr. Payton, they trying to border us in now though. I'm like,
I
I can't have
know.
that. I can't have
I've been
that.
in my
I'm not having
two bedroom apartment going on 3 weeks now.
that.
I go to
I'm
the
not
beach
having that.
and I go to the beach and I just drive down the beach line very slowly now. The other day I got out and there were two huge sea turtles sunning themselves on rocks. And I'm like, well, the police may pick me up, but I'm taking pictures of these turtles. But they didn't. It was fine. They were beautiful. And I'm like, wow. So it's
But but
you got to
now
get
that
out
you
and do what you can
mentioned,
do.
yeah,
Huh?
yeah, like somebody tried to tell me, like they said we have a they said quarantine 14 days. I was like, I got something to do. So
No, you don't. You got to live. Be safe, be careful. That's what you got to do. But I want to say something before. I don't know how long are we, an hour? But
mhm,
you talk about travel, and I've talked about children. I've talked about kids. I have two books out, Taylor STEM
mhm,
Adventures,
yes,
and my first book is Taylor STEM Adventures Hawaii, and it was when my children and I lived here before because we lived on Oahu,
mhm,
and we discussed all of the things that you can actually do with your children here in Hawaii. from at that time going to the active volcano, which is not active anymore, but I've been back there since I've been here. Oh my God, it's still a beautiful place to go and be. To going in submarines underwater. It's getting out and actually doing things with your kids in STEM.
Mhm.
The second book is Taylor STEM Adventures Texas, and it's the same thing.
Mhm.
Kids will ask, well, Daddy, why is the Texas Capitol pink? It's because of the color limestone it was made from. And then we talk about limestone and how it came about. And then, the other
Mhm.
thing is, what does the San Antonio Riverwalk and Disney have in common? Well, it was the engineers. So, it's that kind of thing that I took a look at that made make science relevant to a family because of being in the military, you get stationed everywhere. So take your
Yeah.
kids out, look at things, and that's what I wanted to do.
Awesome, awesome. And I was just gonna ask you about about the books that you have because I've seen where you've posted about them, and the little boy is like having his adventure um,
Yeah.
around the world. So that's pretty awesome. And I want to ask you too, what has been hands down the best thing about your journey in STEM and related to being abroad as well? What has been best your best experience or the best thing about your journey?
The best thing about my journey, I have two. One is the people.
Mm-hmm.
When my students get to do some of the things that they would not have gotten to do if I had not have been there,
Mm-hmm.
or me allowing them to take a step out of the box. If they say, well, what if we do something this way, what do you think will happen? Well,
Okay.
as long as it doesn't set the school on fire, I'm okay. And I have done that accidentally. uh,
Oh my
and
goodness.
yeah, only one time a fire truck had to show up. The other two times it didn't.
Huh.
But but uh, other than that, just seeing, I'm going to tell y'all, the world is a majestic place. I'm on a ferry going from Oahu to Maui, and you see whales come out of the water. Or I'm in Oman and I'm swimming in the sea around the seas around Oman, and then you get back on the ship or on the boat, and you go to another place and you see these luminescent jellyfish and dolphins. um, and then I've had private tours of IBM, and just seeing the world from
Mm-hmm.
the eyes of a just differently has just made it so much more fun to me. Being back on the island now, we know about the seven basic islands of Hawaii, but
Mm-hmm.
there are over 100 islands that make up the
Wow.
Hawaii island chain.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've gotten to meet some people that are scientists in that field since I've been here, and people who, you know, they're that's what they do, is the oceanography side of
Mm-hmm.
these islands, and fishermen, and it's just amazing. And I'm still learning from people who are from, just the everyday people to the people who are like some of the best scientists in the world. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky. I went to take pictures one day at the King Kamehameha statue, and I met
Mm-hmm.
the director of medicine for this island, and I didn't know who she was. She's like, "Oh, why don't you come to my house for a barbecue?" And I'm like, "This lady don't know me. I could be crazy." But I went to her house, and there were all of these young doctors there, and they were students, and they were talking about what they were doing, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know that's what she did." Her name is Mary. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh my goodness." So it's like I'm constantly meeting wonderful people. I'm constantly seeing beautiful things and still learning. And I'm in my 60s. So,
Hmm.
that's
Wow. Wow.
what this is
You're
all.
still getting out there, doing things, and
Yeah.
that's awesome because most people be like, "Oh, well, there's nothing you can do now." Like, but no, you're still out there educating, like you said, and meeting people and doing like great things. Yes. Now, for those, because you mentioned your books, and we know that you have your radio show as well. For those who would like to contact you, how can they reach out to you if they want to know more information about you or find out about your books? How can they contact you or find out more
Okay.
about you?
Okay. You can contact me for using the show's email address, which is allaboutSTEMradio@gmail.com. And that's anytime. That's if you have something in STEM that you want to showcase, please, please, please let me know. If you have a fabulous kid in STEM, let me know.
Hmm.
Because, like I say, STEM has no age limit. And also, if you want to learn more about my books, they are both on Amazon. One is Taylor STEM Adventures Hawaii, and the other one is Taylor STEM Adventures Texas. And I have a website called STEM Adventures or stemadv.com.
Hmm.
And you can find some educational stuff there and so on and so forth. So to email me is allaboutSTEMradio@gmail.com. And my website is stemadv.com. So that's where you find a lot about me
Okay,
or find the
awesome.
book.
And awesome. So you guys can see the information is also going across the screen as well, and you can always go back to the replay if it's going too fast for you, and pause it and copy the information down too
Oh yeah, I forgot
if
my
you need to.
Instagram. There it is. All about STEM radio.
Yes,
Hey.
yes. So you can. So there's several ways you can reach out to Dr. Payton, guys. And also those of you who, again, like are teachers, like she shared a lot of information about teachers, and I think you may give like consultation or maybe something about
Yes.
that for those who may need their help, like in STEM, how they can do that from home and things
Hmm.
like that too. So you guys make sure you check out Dr. Payton. And before we go, Dr. Payton, I want to know if you have any advice or closing thoughts that you would like to share with our viewers.
What I'd like to share with your viewers, especially the parents and the teachers and anybody else who deals with people, it doesn't have to be kids, it can be adults who like science. Um, when you're dealing with STEM, you have to do it. Get
Mm-hmm.
out and just do it.
Mm-hmm.
My children laugh at me because I have all of these containers of Legos in my garage,
Mm-hmm.
and I love building. I love building robots. I buy robots and build them at home. And my sons are in their 20s. They'll come over and they'll battle each other. But if you're interested in STEM, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Learn about it. Do it. Read about it. If you're wanting to go into a field, there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of STEM career fields that have nothing to do with being an engineer or a tech person or something like that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, think about those fields that you want to be in. You may want to be a forensic scientist. You may want to be a photographer. You may want to
Mm-hmm.
be a boiler maker, and that's the people who make the hot water heaters or HVAC. All of
Mm-hmm.
those fields are out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so you can do apprenticeships, or if you have a child that's interested, put that child in that arena. If they want to work with pets, let them intern at a veterinarian clinic. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's things that, because they may get there and then figure out, I really don't like dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
they haven't wasted their time. They've tried things out. And that's what I did with my children is I let them try things out.
Hmm.
And now they're doing what they love. So just like their mama.
Oh my
So
goodness. So that's yes, that is so awesome. I remember when you posted about your son going to the museum and the pictures that they showed were like so cool. Of him and his
yeah.
friends that were at the museum. Almost like reminded me of like Jurassic Park. So like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They went to the dinosaur national park in Texas. They just woke up. He goes, and this was just a few months in January. He goes, we're going to Dinosaur National Park. We don't have anything else to do. No, it was December during Christmas break, and I'm like, go. And it's like an hour and a half away from home, and that's where they went. And I'm like, okay, the madness goes on in my life, but it's like what just before I left to come here, we did indoor skydiving. Why
mm,
am I doing indoor skydiving? It was
wow.
so much fun. So
W- Wow. That you can actually do that like inside.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
I've
Okay.
gone with people to go outdoor skydiving when I went to Kenya, but I was like, I don't need to jump out of a perfectly good flying vehicle. I didn't do it the 29 years I was in the military. I'm not doing it now. But indoor skydiving was so much fun. So,
Mm.
mhm,
Nice, nice. Indoor sounds a little bit safer to me than like outside. So, so who knows in the future? Maybe I'll try that too. Uh,
okay, go
um,
for it.
yes, but I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Payton, and sharing all the wonderful information that you share with us that I know is going to be beneficial to others, educators, and those who are not in the education field. They can glean from this, and maybe even some students. Some little students may watch and be like, "Hey," and tell their teachers, "Can we do this?" Like, and find out more about like STEM than what they thought about. So it's not like STEM, but they now see how it's related to their own lives. Like you said, pick
Yeah,
papayas and take the seeds out and examine them and things. So you share like so much with us, and I thank you so much
you're
for that.
welcome. Thank you for
Uh,
having me.
you're so welcome. And I also want to thank the viewers who tuned in today, or you may be watching this later because the replay will be available on YouTube. So you may be watching it later. And again, you can reach out to Dr. Payton as well with our contact information. You can jot it down from the video. And also, if you guys want to contact me or find out more about what I'm doing, you can also contact me or look me up at taiwandabason.com as well as on Facebook and Instagram at Taiwanda Bason. And again, thank you, Dr. Payton. You were the first interview of 2020. So,
Thank you, Taiwanda. So,
yes,
hey, we still got to keep in touch because we've got so much that we talk about. So, I will talk to you later.
okay, definitely. And you enjoy the rest of your day, Dr. Payton. And you guys as well, wherever you are in the world, have a good day, have a good night, and see you next time. Bye bye.